Hi, I'm Seychelles Bazell, and I play Rosie in season 1 of Awkward Conversations, the web series for parents. This week, we're going to take a look back at some of the post-show interviews where Jody and Amy are joined by special guest parents Andy Buckley and Sean Astin. But first, we're going to watch a clip from the scripted portion of the show featuring David Desmalchian and Denora Walcott, who play my mom and dad in the show. If you haven't seen the show, please visit the Elks DAP YouTube page and check out all 3 episodes. And of course, we will be back next week with another all-new episode of the Awkward Conversations podcast. Thank you.
Hey, babe. I'm so sorry I missed lunch.
It's okay. You can heat that up, you know.
I know. I just like it cold. Sounds like I missed quite the conversation with Grandpa today. How did I never know that he was an alcoholic?
It's okay. They can't hear you. Rosie's taking a shower and Cam went next door to play. I'm not sure I appreciate him telling the kids that. You know how Rosie is. The first time she gets caught drinking, she'll use that as an excuse.
You seem awfully sure that's gonna happen. I thought you trusted her.
I do trust her. Now. But you and I both know it's only a matter of time before she starts experimenting.
Well, that matter of time better not start till like 6 years from now.
6 years. God, that's scary.
I know, right? And it's gonna be gone in the blink of an eye. My idea about building a tower is sounding better and better, right?
This whole thing has me realizing I should clean out the medicine cabinets.
You're such a good mom, babe. Wait, the medicine cabinet. Yeah, don't throw away the Propecia, because this stressed the kids. I'm gonna be bald without it.
You're cute either way.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Awkward Conversations, episode 2. We're here for the post chat. I am your host, Jody Sweeten, along with Amy McCarthy, who is a licensed clinical social worker, who will be with us helping to guide the conversations about how to best help your kids. A huge thank you to the Elks DAP, which is the largest all-volunteer nationwide drug awareness program, and also a huge thanks to the DEA for their outreach program and for making this possible. Now, one of the things that we saw here in episode 2 that was being discussed was the use of prescription painkillers, prescription meds, both by the adults and also, cleaning out cabinets when it comes to having those kids in your house. What are some of the things that you have seen and that you recognize that can be dangers when you have prescription meds in your house?
No, wonderful question. I think that for the families that I work with and talk with a lot, the things that are very helpful are to be aware of the fact that, first and foremost, young people do sometimes use prescription medications and misuse them. And so being able to have those conversations with your children to make sure that they know about the pitfalls or the potential hazards of that, I think is one thing. Another thing that I would recommend is to kind of keep tabs every now and again, like look in those medicine cabinets. You don't take out the cough medicine until somebody has a cold. And if you're lucky, then that's not very often. And so going through and kind of checking how many pills are kind of left in here, what was kind of the level that I last saw this bottle kind of at. And in certain cases, if you're concerned about these types of things, investing in objects or kind of items like a lockbox so that you can be able to, have those things be put away and know that they're safely, contained so that your children have to come to you in order to get access to medications when they need them.
I think prescription lock boxes are actually really, really important. I have 2 daughters, 13 and 11. And while I trust them, they have friends in the house. Kids make impulsive decisions, even over the counter medications that you might keep in your medicine cabinet without really thinking about it. Those are things that kids will find. And, I remember kids my age when I was young, and it was like, well, if 2 is good, 6 is better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also prescription medications that you're also taking or that another person in the family is taking. And, kids may kind of get confused. They think one bottle's, something when it's something else, or they may be looking to experiment with their, siblings' stimulant medication or something like that. And so again, being really mindful of kind of holding the reins and the control in your household around those things, I think is really critical.
Absolutely. And, there's also every October and April, there's Drug Take Back Day. You can actually use the resource below to check your zip code and find out places where you can take old medications, expired medications that you don't use anymore. You can take all of those things back and have them safely destroyed, because it's actually not a good idea to flush medication down your toilet or put it in your water. It actually really affects our water. So don't do that.
Hot tip, do not flush.
Now, one of the things, we're discussing the use of pain medications and different influences in kids' lives. One of the things that actually got brought up in this video too was, the daughter talking about her knee hurting. The coach was pushing her to just keep going a little bit further. And, these days kids get in competitive sports and they really push themselves.
Kids do have so much pressure and are kind of pushed to points that may put them in positions that, experimenting or using things to kind of help them, whether it be sports or, their creative process for, music making or for, their art or whatever kind of it may be that interests them most. And so while coaches and kind of older adults and mentors can be such a positive impact on young people, we do want to kind of be mindful of, as a parent and as a caregiver, what are your values and how do those values align with the kind of mentors in your child's life? And remember that both your child and you have additional support, such as, their pediatrician, such as the school nurse, people who can give feedback based on kind of, the medical science around what is okay for your child to do and what's not okay.
The daughter, she mentions this in the video. She says being a teen is complicated. And it is. There are all of these things going on. To us as adults, we go, oh, we've survived these things and we know that it's going to be okay. But, to young people, oftentimes this is the first experience they've ever had with a heartbreak, a rejection, a loss, something like that. And for them, the flood of emotions is huge. So, as parents, there's this fine line, I think, that we walk of being like, look, you're going to get through this while not discounting the importance of what that emotional moment is for them and how to help support them and grow through that emotionally.
100%. Absolutely.
I want to welcome Andy Buckley to the conversation. Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm great. Hi, Jody. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, many people may know you from The Office. And you are here joining this conversation because you two have children of your own. How old are your kids?
Yep, I have 2 sons, 16, and this is, in that wheelhouse very much so. And then a little 11-year-old, who I probably don't realize it. Maybe I should be, talking to him about these things.
Right. Yeah. It comes up a lot quicker than we thought. And we've been having this conversation with Amy too about how, it's sort of all of a sudden arrives. I mean, I have 13 and 11-year-old daughters myself, and same thing. The 13-year-old, I'm like, okay, I feel like she's pretty well prepared. And then you get to the 11, you're like, oh, I got to talk to you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what have been your conversations so far, with your kids surrounding drugs and alcohol and use?
With my older guy, it's very much, it's similar, though probably more awkward than in the shorts.
And that's one of the conversations that David has in this is, and he kind of gets he trips over his own words about, what he should say when the kids go, well, why can adults drink?
Yeah, that's such a poignant thing. Yeah, like these beer commercials. I mean, you look and it's just the world's greatest, and it's a big party, and hey, and it's well, why can you when you're 21 you can do whatever you want, sort of thing. Just to jump back to the second one, I thought that was great when the grandfather, the great John Amos, was sort of talking about his past in that it sort of humanizes him, humanizes all of us, allows us, because we all have weaknesses, weak spots. And it makes it okay to talk about these things. And then I think it was this one, the one we're talking about now, the third one, where it's okay to ask for help.
I love how episode 3 ends, though, and I think it's really important and sort of ties everything together in that, what he says is, or what they say is, all take our odds as a team. Every good team needs help. So, Andy, what are some of the ways that you have kind of built your parenting team around your kids, and what is the village that you use?
So my wife and I, us as a team, and then individually, but we have 3 or 4 great friends who've basically known both of our kids, some since they were born, and then others just in the last 4 or 5 years. But it's that it takes a village thing is so true.
Exactly. And there's getsmartaboutdrugs.com, which we've mentioned several times, is a really great resource. So parents, don't feel like you're in this alone. You are definitely not. There are all kinds of resources out there, ways to talk to your kids, ways to make it a little bit less awkward, and resources so that if you are faced with some of these things, that you can handle them appropriately, and also at different age levels, because it changes from elementary to middle to high school. These conversations keep on a different life as your kids get older.
And it was so wild. My older guy has gone out to a few parties, and you wait up and you're like, all right, okay. And
yeah, come breathe on me. Let me look at your eyes.
It's the parents' rite of passage.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, Andy, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Best of luck with your kids, and I hope all goes well and smoothly. And thank you again so much.
All right. See you guys.
And I want to welcome Sean Astin to the conversation. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you are a parent of 3 girls, correct?
Correct.
And how old are your girls?
Allie is 24 and soon to be 25, and Elizabeth is 19, and Bella is 16.
Ooh, yeah. So you have definitely been through some of these awkward conversations. You're probably in the middle of some of these awkward conversations. Have you handled them any better than David's character has? Where I know there was one point where he gets a little bit kind of tongue-tied and befuddled
about alcohol. He's like, why is alcohol okay for a parent? I wanted to shout because their brain development isn't there yet.
But, you have no frontal lobe.
The amazing thing for me as I watch that video is realizing how much groundwork my wife has laid with them over time, that by the time you get to the awkward conversation, you're really floating on a sea of all of those previous conversations and credibility that you have. And yeah, I mean, I am the awkward one. I'm the one who just can't say the right thing.
So basically what you're saying is your wife has laid fantastic groundwork.
She's also patient with me. I'll come in to leverage some dad wisdom, and you can see her, whatever Christine, my wife, is occupied with, she's just doing what she's doing and aware of what I'm saying. And just as I get to the point where whatever the awkwardness or counterproductiveness is, she'll jump in and continue to did you
steer this conversation back?
Yeah. She'll redirect me. And I'm like, wait a minute, am I being handled right now? Is that what's happening? But I definitely feel like I don't treat my kids like they're adults, but from the time they were really little, we just talk to them. Right. If they ask a question, we answer the question. My thought is like, if they're asking about it, they're old enough.
Then something has brought it to their attention. And that's, one of the biggest things that we've been talking about here, in addition to resources like getsmartaboutdrugs.com, but it, is also just having those open lines of communication. And being that you have kind of a wide age range between your kids, have you found that it's been any different talking to your 24-year-old than it is talking to your 16-year-old?
Very different. They go to school on each other. The youngest one's vibe is she gets to the end of the conversation before the conversation starts. She's heard it. She's heard the cycle of the conversation with the first two, and she just doesn't have the patience for it. And it's bedeviling because you're like, what what's gone in?
I was wondering, do you see a difference in like how social media has maybe affected the difference between your 24-year-old and your 16-year-old? Because I know just even a couple years, these days it seems like if there's the TikTok generation and the pre-TikTok generation, and they're vastly different, and what they're exposed to and what they're talking about is different. So I wondered if you've noticed that, like between your kids.
I know that she's experiencing things. Her friends, particularly during COVID, the littlest one,
Right.
are like a video game. How can they not be? She's not actually seeing them. She's playing the rhythms of her friendships, and you can tell all of a sudden when there's a crescendo with the friend group that she's not getting to be a part of or whatever. All of a sudden she'll just get agitated, or she'll get emotional, she'll get whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, so there's actually something happening inside of this little device. And then there's other things. I've seen statistics about what kids have seen on their phones by the time they're 13 and 14. Violence and content that's would be deemed inappropriate. They've seen it, a lot of it. And they're incredible actors, performers, kids are, because they know how to not let you know what they've seen. But if you catch them in unguarded moments, you can be like, oh, hey, did you see the thing like there? Or hey, have you seen anything like this? And, oh yeah. Oop. And you sort of, you're like, okay. So that's the other thing is when a kid reveals something to you on purpose or on accident, not jumping on it, really hard to do.
Like nothing is shocking me. Right. But it's in those moments, right, that the truth kind of comes out, and that is those moments that I think kids are looking for, to be like, are you going to freak out on me? If I talk about my friend that's drinking or vaping or doing drugs, if I bring that up, what's your reaction going to be? And I think sometimes kids use those conversations of my friend or, somebody I know as a gateway to be like, how can I approach having this conversation with my own parents about this? And I want to see if they're going to like lose it about somebody else. Because if that's the case, then I'm definitely not talking to them about me.
Finding other things that they're interested in to focus on, like even at those critical moments, is disarming. And you're like, hey, let's play this video game, or let's, I don't know, go fishing, or whatever they're into.
Right.
I always thought my job was to say no. My job was to come and say, nope, you can't do that. It's bedtime. Nope, you can't go. Nope, we're not going there. You can't. Nope, Disneyland, it's closing in 10 minutes. Whatever it is. Like my job is to say no. And it wasn't until I read something a few years back, like too late. I read it too late. That it's the parent's job to say yes as much as humanly possible. So that when you say no, and this is, my wife does this, it means something.
One of the things you've been talking about, Sean, that I love hearing is the great relationship that you and your wife have, and that the relationship that you've both established with your kids, and how important that is. And Amy, I'd love to hear, sort of your points of view on developing those relationships and why it's so important to have that foundation as you're discussing things like this with your kids, and how, what are some of the tools that you can do to get those relationships?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in my work, we talk about how there can be so many difficult points of life. And so having those good, kind of exposure moments, or those good points of contact, are the things that sometimes get families through the tougher times. And so the relationship is 100% the top of the pyramid in terms of having awkward conversations. If you don't have that trust, if you don't have that rapport, that relationship, it's going to make it incredibly difficult to kind of get deeper and dive down a little bit further into kind of what's going on in their minds.
Sean, it seems like you and your wife have done a beautiful job at really bringing that out together, and also, with your kids. Are there tips? Is there any way that you really kind of took that on, and how you have managed to continue that sort of relationship with your kids throughout all these years?
Well, my wife has a flawless relationship with the kids. They have a symbiosis between them. And that comes from the amount of time and focus she's been able to give them. I'm a little bit like the monster in the garage. Right? Oh, thanks. Look at that. Sure. Thanks. Look at that. My middle kid just brought me food. I take it all back. The
Little children are
relationship
the
is
best.
flawless.
I haven't screwed them.
The relationship is flawless. No, but it would be, it's wrong to suggest that there's like perfect relationships. I glorify my wife's relationship with them because I appreciate it so much. And if I was going to give a tip, it would be to, I learned this at one point in a leadership seminar, ennoble the effort, where you look at something and you go, something right is happening right there. And I see that right thing is happening. I acknowledge that right thing is happening and I support that. And in our parenting situation, it's the way my wife invests in their everything.
Like you said, there are no perfect relationships. Nothing is perfect. No conversation, whether it's awkward or not, is going to go perfectly.
They're like, you're the dad.
Right.
You're supposed to say this. You know, you're supposed to say the thing the father is supposed to say. Why don't you know that? And I'm like, I'm a human being. I'm an indivive. You're an individual.
I don't know.
Yeah.
First thing that popped into my head.
Well,
the joke was good. I couldn't leave it sitting there. I've said that to my kids so many times. I'll say something and they're like, that was not the right answer. I'm like, no, but it was funny. Yeah, but it was funny. Not even funny.
In that way, it couldn't have been more right.
Exactly. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you jumping in for this conversation.
It wasn't an awkward conversation at all.
No, it was not.
Keep up the great work you guys are doing.
Thank you so much, Amy. And make sure to check out resources like getsmartaboutdrugs.com. There are so many wonderful resources out there. And I just thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Coming up on the next episode of Awkward Conversations.
We need to be able to look out for some of the things that kids are feeling and how they're expressing their stress, because it might not look how we think it's going to look.
So using meditation, using guided visualizations, doing some breathing, yoga, all of these are great practices to help calm the body down, to manage stress and anxiety.
I think what's great about meditation too and mindfulness is like there's science that backs up, like this is not fluff, like there are health outcomes that are...
I've suffered through 40 years of experiences and pain and heartbreak and all of this, but for kids, this is often the first time.
Yeah, I mean, even at that age, they have their little stresses, you know, and their little problems. And they are little issues, but to them, they're big problems.
A lot of those physical symptoms that, you know, kind of, it's like, are they sick? But really it's coming, you know, what's happening is it's a stress symptom.
You don't have your own stress under control or your own household near most. That could cause stress down the line, and then it's like almost a ripple effect.
Make sure to check out getsmartaboutdrugs.com. Parents, caregivers, you can find so many resources of great information there about how to talk to your kids and make these conversations a little less awkward. A huge thank you to the Elks DAP, which is the largest all-volunteer nationwide drug awareness program, and also a huge thanks to the DEA for their outreach program and for making this possible.
The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Awkward Conversation series are solely those of the individuals, speakers, commentators, experts, and/or hosts involved, and do not necessarily reflect nor represent those of the production, associates, or broadcaster, or any of its employees. Production is not responsible and does not verify for accuracy any of the information contained in the series available for viewing. The primary purpose of this series is to educate and inform. This series does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. This series is available for private, non-commercial use only. The production, broadcaster, or its channel cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.